All right, boys and girls, welcome back to the drive-thru for a little remix edition. Okay, we're going to get going. Shout out to getting going. We need to remember how to multiply fractions and how to factor, okay? So, let's take a look at how we would multiply fractions. Let's say we had 4/7 times 14/20. Let's just say that's what we had, okay? Well, one way to multiply fractions is just to multiply across the top and multiply across the bottom. So, you could just do 4 times 14, and I think that's 56, but I don't want to get this wrong, so I'm going to check. Okay? And then you would do 7 times 20, and now you're left with reducing that fraction. Okay, so maybe you would divide everything by 4, and so you would make that a 14, and divide that by 4, and make that a 35, okay? And maybe you would leave your fraction like that, and if it was like 6th grade, then your teacher would take off a point, because it wasn't completely reduced. Both of these things are divisible by 7, so 14 divided by 7 is 2, and 35 divided by 7 is 5, so your answer would be 2/5. But that's not the best strategy to multiply fractions. You can use your calculator. Here's the problem. You can't use your calculator on that one. You see it? So that's the whole idea. This is where we kind of lead kids down a path to failure if we only teach them how to use their calculator, because then when they get to problems that involve algebra and therefore on the way into calculus, they don't know what they're doing. So I'm literally just reviewing the rules with you. Okay? So here's would be a better strategy. Notice that 14 and 7 are both divisible by 7. So even though they're not right on top of each other, you can still cancel them. I reduced that fraction. I divided everything by 7. Similarly, 4 and 20 are both divisible by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And now I can just multiply across. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 5 is 5. And in my mind, that's a lot quicker way to do it. You're not going to have to do that with fractions today. You just need to know those rules. So far, so good? Okay. Factoring. First, let's look at a special case that you guys remember from last week. Okay? That's called a difference of squares. And you could also consider that to be x squared plus 0x minus 25. And can you think of two numbers that multiply to be negative 25 and add to be 0? Well, you already called this, Alex. That is x plus 5 times x minus 5, okay? And you could have had that written in any order you wanted. Let's do one more factoring example just to keep ourselves fresh. How about x squared minus 7x? Oh, how about minus 18? Two numbers that multiply to be negative 18 and add to be negative 7. Eve, as you smack Christine in the face? X minus 9, x plus 2. Okay, so that's factoring. That's all we got to remember to do this today. Okay, so now take a look at your assignment. We're going to do 4 of these together. So number 1 and 2, we're just simplifying fractions. But there's another little piece of the directions that says state any restrictions. So remember that we're not allowed dividing by what? 0. So essentially, here's what I would do if I were you guys. Start this process out every time by just setting the denominator equal to 0. We're trying to figure out what are we not allowed to put in. That would be the restriction. Okay, so you would subtract 3, and you get 2x equals negative 3. Divide each side by 2, and you get x is negative 3 halves, or you could write that as negative 1.5. Okay, well, what that means is that if x is negative 3 halves, we get 0. Do you understand that? And we don't want 0. So that is our restriction. So when we get to that point, I just put a little slash through that, meaning x is not allowed to be negative 3 halves. Okay? So that's actually the second part of the directions. State the restrictions. Now, what you do to simplify is you just factor. And this one's so easy it might be actually difficult for you guys because it's so simple. What number does 4 and 6 both contain? So you just factor out a 2. Okay? And now, I'll write this in parentheses just so it looks the same. This thing cancels because anything divided by itself is 1. So you would circle 2 and maybe box this as the restriction, and that's your answer. So that fraction reduces to 2. Bless you. Okay? All right. So here's where we'll have to do a little factoring. We'll start off by finding the restrictions. What, bless you. Y squared plus 6y is not allowed to be 0. It's probably easier if I just start with that slashed equal sign right away. You understand why it's not allowed to be 0? Because we're not allowed dividing by 0. So there's a couple different ways to solve this. I would recommend factoring because that's what we're practicing. Okay? You see how I did that? All right, so once you have it in this situation, what is y not allowed to be? Solve this thing. What'd you say? Y is not allowed to be 0, because look, if you put a 0 in here, you get 0 times 6. What's the other value? Negative 6. Okay? You done already?
Yeah.
That a girl? That a girl? Go see Mr. Wiggles. So there's our restrictions. And now we'll simplify this thing. We'll rewrite it as 2y over y times y plus 6. Remember, you can only cancel things that are multiplying by each other. It's that one on the right, Caitlin. So now we just can cross out the y's. And our answer is 2 divided by y plus 6. Okay? Awesome. Here we go. I actually find these to be a little easier. So, start out with our restrictions. X squared minus 36 is not allowed to be 0 because it's your denominator. No zeros on the bottom. Okay? Can we factor that thing? Yes. What is it? Good. So now what are our restrictions on x? Have our restrictions done. And hopefully you have enough room to do this on the worksheet. We tried to space them out enough. Use the margins and everything else that you need. Alright, so now let's rewrite the top. Two numbers that multiply to be negative 18 and add to be positive 3. Bless you if that's a sneeze. Sorry, 6 and negative 3. Bless you. I was sitting next to this kid in high school, and he held his sneeze in, and his ears blew off his head. That's a total lie. It would be amazing if that happened. There was another kid in high school that said that he could breathe underwater through his ears. His name was Wade. I don't want to say his last name, because I think he might come back and kill me. But there's no way that's humanly possible. That's true. Maybe he wasn't human. Alright, so you see what we're going to cancel here? And we're left with the answer being x minus 3 over x minus 6. And here's the worst part of algebra. The directions say simplify, and so you want to keep going, and many of you are going to somehow try to cancel those, and you can't, because they're not multiplying. So the 3 and the 6 are not reducible there. Yeah, people would say that's x minus 1 over x minus 2, and that's just not true. Okay? So you only can reduce things out if they're being multiplied. Alright, we're going to do one more, and we're going to set you guys free. And this is the one that's like the one, it's now we're dealing with both fractions and factoring, okay? So, first of all, we already have one restriction that we can see right off the bat, and that's from this. So what can x not equal already? X cannot equal 5. Okay? So now we also got to figure out, well, x squared plus 3x is also not allowed to equal 0. So factor that. X times x plus 3 cannot equal 0. So what else is x not allowed to be? There you go. Negative 3 and... Okay. Alright, so we got the restrictions part done. I got the negative 3 from right here, okay? Thanks, Alex. Good question. Alright, so now I got to go to work factoring all the top and all the bottom. So we're going to rewrite the top as x times x minus 5, okay, times, and I'm just putting them in parentheses because it just makes me feel more happy and comfortable, and that's a good way to be in life. And then on the bottom, I'm going to rewrite that as x times x plus 3, and that, again, that makes me feel good. And then I'm going to rewrite this as x minus 5 in parentheses, and now I'm going to start cross-canceling. And what are you going to get? You're going to get 1. Watch. That, well here, let me use my red. That cancels with that. That with that. That with that. But we're not really canceling. We're not just eliminating things from the earth. We're just saying that one thing divided by itself is equal to what? And so that's our answer. Got it? The key is up online. You guys will be done by the end of the bell. I'll definitely be checking this. So get to work. Maybe I'll check it at the end of the bell if we can get that far. Can I get a boom?